Hi, I'm Max Keiser. This is the Keiser Report. Yeah, Bitcoin is skyrocketing up the charts, heading into the five-figure tens of thousands, soon to be hundreds of thousands of dollars. A lot of stories emerging. You know, Stacy, it's amazing going back to the 2011 era when Bitcoin was $1, $2, $3. Of course, we were reporting it here on the Keiser Report. A lot of people would give me Bitcoins at these conferences. I gave a lot of people lots of Bitcoins. I distinctly remember giving Russell Brand 1,000 Bitcoins when they were, I think, maybe $2 a Bitcoin. That's now worth $16 million. I wonder if he still has them. Some of them were these Keiser coins, and I don't, you know, it's just lost track. It's like giving away candy at that time. Now, of course, they're worth something.
Yeah, we're going to, as we approach the end of the year and do our retrospectives and look forward to the new year, we're going to talk a lot about the history of Bitcoin and what's going on. We are recording this quite a few hours before the futures markets open in Chicago. So Bitcoin has become a huge, massive international story. Everybody's hearing about it. We're getting a lot of tweets and a lot of emails asking how to buy it. People are panic buying, and you're certainly seeing that. I saw a chart of buys versus sells, and it's all buys, no selling. There's nobody selling. So you're seeing quite basically a melt up, and then a roller coaster down. So it's very volatile. We're going to see a lot of volatility in Bitcoin prices as these futures markets unfold. There's going to be multiple futures contracts, multiple banks. All these banks are getting into it. We are, again, recording this right before the futures markets open in Chicago. So what's your prediction? By the time this airs, it will have already happened. What's your prediction for how it will have impacted the price, if anything, on late Sunday, early Monday?
I think we're going to see upward trend because the business of futures trading needs, at their core, a lot of inventory of coins. So that I think, as I've been saying, get an inventory of coins on the books so that specialists and market makers can do their job in creating a price structure and price discovery, but you need to have an inventory to do that. Remember, I invented the virtual specialist technology, patent number 5950176. I have designed trading technologies and specialist technologies going back to 1997, and before that, I was a trader on Wall Street, traded options. I was the third biggest options producer in the Shearson Lehman Hutton system for many years, and so now they're coming into my territory.
So tell us, what do you think the
Bitcoin's coming into my house.
So what do you think the futures market is? A lot of people are from the precious metals market who have been watching our show, and what they always say is that the futures markets, the paper markets, have driven down the price of gold and silver. What do you think is going to have an impact or not on Bitcoin?
See, what's happening in gold and silver is that capital's fleeing gold and silver and going into Bitcoin. Capital is fleeing fiat money going into Bitcoin. Capital is fleeing all these other debt-ridden asset classes and into this new emerging asset class, and therefore you've got this upward buying pressure. People don't understand that at its heart, Bitcoin is a messaging app first, a store of value second, and a medium of exchange third. The Satoshi white paper is a bit misleading because it leads off by calling Bitcoin digital cash. That's kind of misleading. It's not really digital cash until first it establishes itself as a messaging app. Money and economics are the history of communication and trade and language. That's language explodes onto the scene. Trade explodes onto the scene. Messaging apps explode and exponentially onto the scene. Bitcoin is similarly. It's unique in this way. It's an emerging asset class. It's not quite a currency. It's not quite a commodity. It's not quite a technology. It's a combination of all these things happening in this beautifully Cartesian, elegant distribution of interests called the Bitcoin protocol, and it's eating the fiat world, eating the commodity world, eating the technology world, and it's going to 100,000, 200,000, 300,000 a coin because this is what you got to do. Instead of saying, what's Bitcoin in relation to gold? In other words, if it trades at $400,000 a coin, it would be roughly equivalent to the total above-ground gold stock in the world. You have to look at it in terms of Bitcoin as related to global debt. It's not $7 trillion in debt, like $7 trillion in gold. There's $300 trillion in debt. I did the calculations, and that would imply a Bitcoin price of over $2 million a coin to monetize that debt and to get rid of that debt.
Okay, we're going really fast.
Why are we going too fast?
We're
this is the revolution. The Earth spins, we're flying through space at hundreds of thousands of miles per second. Why do we, light, it's the speed of light. How can we discount that? How can we belittle that? If we put a man on the moon, we can put Bitcoin to 1 million.
Okay, as you said, many people call Bitcoin gold 2.0. If just as operating as a gold, proxy or gold of its own, a digital gold, as Bitcoin investor Novogratz has said, that would equal $400,000 per Bitcoin, just to equal the size of the gold market, which is over $7 trillion.
We made that point years ago, but continue.
Yes, this is what he determined the price would be, is exactly $400,000.
He watches our show, I get it.
Okay. I'm still asking you, however, what do you think the Chicago futures markets, we have CBOE on Sunday, and then right after CME, and then there are going to be NASDAQ, Cantor Fitzgerald, who you sold your technology to, your company to at Hollywood Stock Exchange. What do you think the impact will be on the price? Will it provide more liquidity? Will it bring in more money? Will it cause more volatility? Will it provide less volatility? What do you think will happen?
It'll create a bigger pipe for more money to flow into Bitcoin. Right now, the pipe is about, like this. It's a relatively minuscule market compared to the bond futures, the currency futures, stock futures. $5 trillion worth of Forex per day is the market. Bitcoin in that arena is a pipsqueak. By expanding these contracts, futures contracts, derivatives, and bringing Wall Street and Chicago into the mix, you're taking that small straw, which is an on-ramp for fiat, into Bitcoin, and you're making it massively bigger. And that on-ramp is going to suck in what I call the Bitcoin black hole. It'll suck every piece of fiat, debt-ridden, carcinogenic, bull-hooky central bank, Wall Street Bank. Jamie Dimon will be sucked through a straw. I mean, imagine Jamie Dimon being sucked through a straw. What do you end up on the other end is a pulp of snot and degenerate,
derivatives.
Imagine Lloyd Blankfein being sucked through a garden hose. What ends up on the other? It's a string theory. I mean, it's the Bitcoin black hole. If you enter a black hole, you get stringified.
Spaghettified.
You get spaghettified. Imagine Jamie Dimon and Lloyd Blankfein being spaghettified. They're sucked into the Bitcoin black hole, and they just turn into, atomized pieces of deceit in the Hamptons looking for Matt Lauer and some underage chick.
You mentioned the size of the Forex market, and that's foreign currency exchange, the foreign exchange markets. So that's the biggest market in the world, probably by trade volume per day, 5 trillion a day, dollars versus euro versus yen versus, British pound. I forgot the name of that little country there.
That appendage on the end of Europe, that stub, run by Theresa May.
So that's $5 trillion a day. The very, very first big day, as everybody was preparing for these the futures markets to open on Bitcoin, we saw 28.7 billion in Bitcoin volume. That was up from like 5.5 billion over the summer. So now we're at 28.7 billion, but just a tiny, tiny, tiny blip compared to the whole Forex market of $5 trillion a day.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But so is it the overwhelming? See, this is what people don't understand, is that at its heart, Bitcoin is a messaging app first, store of value second, and a medium of exchange third. As a messaging app, this is the history of economics, the history of money, the history of trade, the history of evolution. The DNA in our cells of our bodies suggests that Bitcoin will be a lot higher because we as a species want to connect, and it's monetization of our unconscious. It's the monetization of our collective unconscious. It's what I call the psychic equity conversion, the PEC. We're converting our consciousness and unconsciousness into a monetary medium of exchange through the magic, if you will, as Steve Jobs would call it, of a messaging app, the Metcalfe's law of exponential growth, and essentially Thayer's law, if you want to talk about economics, for all you economic quants and dweebs and hacks out there, look up Thayer's law, Thiers law of good money pushing out bad, okay? The fiat money is going the way of the dodo.
This brings me towards the end of our show, the last 2 or 3 minutes here before we go into the second half. We had finished your second part of your interview with Randy Voller. I do want to say Max will probably be on RT, talking live as these Bitcoin futures start trading.
Really?
Yeah, well, or other news.
Exciting.
Well, hopefully, or probably. You're going to basically see a lot of live news about the futures markets because it's going to be a big impact and it's a big news and it's a big story. But before that, I want to turn to an interesting story that also happened on the very day that the market started going wild and Bitcoin futures up. Bitcoin prices up at 5,000, down 3,000, up 6,000, down 2,000. When it was very volatile, it was emerged that Saudi Crown Prince is buyer of Da Vinci painting that sold for a record-breaking $450 million, says Wall Street Journal. They got this information from the U.S. intelligence community that it was the Saudi Crown Prince, the same guy incarcerating those hundreds of princes. And
You had to pay for the painting somehow.
Exactly. But, this is very old school, old world. Everybody's like, wow, that's the Crown Prince. This is $450 million for a Da Vinci painting. Just to put that into context, that is 3 Bitcoin pizzas at the current prices. That's 3 Bitcoin pizzas. Remember, 10,000 Bitcoin were spent for 2 pizzas at the very first ever Bitcoin meetup right here in New York back in 2011. Only 2 or 3 weeks later, there was that Prague Bitcoin conference where you and I attended. But that was just a mere 3 Bitcoin pizzas for this Da Vinci painting.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And, the entire market cap of cryptocurrencies is about $450 billion now, approaching the $500 billion mark. Cryptocurrency market will, of course, top the $1 trillion level and hit the multi-trillion-dollar level, again, because it's this amazing quantum effect of pulling in all the fiat money into the crypto and Bitcoin black hole of store of value.
You used to be the only person calling for, I remember there's some headlines back from 2012 or whatever, Max Keiser says Bitcoin market will go to 100 billion. How wacky, how crazy. But now I tune into the news or I read the headlines and it's nonstop, all sorts of names. This guy says it's going 400,000, 4 billion, 4 trillion. Everybody's like calling this.
Well,
outdo you.
Alan Greenspan was talking about Bitcoin in terms of the Continental, which is I gotta go. All right, well, stay tuned for the second half. A lot more coming your way. Even George Galloway. I gave George Galloway free Bitcoins like in 2011. He's a millionaire, multimillionaire, George. Do you know that?